The American bald eagle, how a miracle chemical became a silent killer. This is the story of how a chemical once celebrated as a miracle nearly erased one of the most powerful symbols in American history. High above North America's rivers, lakes, and coastlines, the American bald eagle once soared in commanding silence, a living emblem of strength, endurance, and freedom. For centuries, this bird ruled the skies. Perched at the very top of the food web, it watched over forests, wetlands, and winding rivers. Its sharp eyes scanned the water below. Its wings, wider than a person is tall, glided effortlessly over endless landscapes. The sun gleamed off its white head, and it truly commanded respect. And then, the skies began to empty. By the middle of the 20th century, something unseen was unraveling the future of the American bald eagle. Nests that had been used for generations fell silent. Eggs shattered before life could emerge. Breeding pairs returned year after year, faithful to their territories only to fail again and again. No guns were fired. No forests vanished overnight. Yet the bald eagle, the national emblem of the United States, was disappearing. What was killing the eagle wasn't a predator or a storm, you know. It was something sneaky, something you couldn't even see. It was a chemical legacy flowing silently through water, soil, and flesh. The bald eagle, more than just a bird. To understand the magnitude of this loss, we must first understand what the bald eagle truly represents. The bald eagle is found only in North America, nowhere else on Earth. It is a top predator and a scavenger, a guardian of balance within its ecosystem. Scientists call it a sentinel species, one whose health reflects the health of the environment itself. When bald eagles thrive, it tells us something important. Rivers are clean, fish populations are strong, food webs are intact. But to Americans, the bald eagle is more than an ecological indicator. In 1782, just years after declaring independence, the United States chose the bald eagle as its national emblem. It came to symbolize freedom, resilience, and the determination of a young nation to endure. Its image appears on currency, flags, seals, and monuments. It is woven into the very identity of the country. To lose the bald eagle would not simply mean losing a species. It would mean losing a living symbol of the land itself. The invisible enemy at first. The crisis was easy to miss. Adult eagles were still present. They hunted fish and waterfowl. They built massive nests high in trees and along cliff edges. They laid their eggs, just as they always had. But something was terribly wrong. Scientists and wildlife biologists began to notice that many of those eggs were unnaturally fragile. Their shells were thin, sometimes so thin that the weight of a parent eagle was enough to crush them. Others cracked under wind or rain. Many never hatched at all. This was deeply puzzling. The eagles were not starving. They showed no obvious signs of disease. They were not being hunted in large numbers. So what was causing entire generations to fail before they even began? The answer lay hidden, moving quietly through rivers, marshes, and wetlands. It accumulated in fish, it concentrated in birds, and with each step up the food chain, it became more powerful. The eagles were being poisoned not directly, but through what they ate, revealing the cause, a miracle chemical. The source of the crisis was a chemical once hailed as a scientific breakthrough. In the 1940s and the 1950s, a powerful insecticide was introduced across the United States. It was extraordinarily effective at killing mosquitoes that spread malaria and typhus diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. It also protected crops from devastating insect pests, dramatically increasing agricultural productivity. This chemical was sprayed everywhere. Across farmland and forests, over wetlands and suburbs, even directly into waterways. Its name was dichlorodifenyl retoncha, better known as DDT, developed during World War II. DDT was a man-made chemical that seemed almost too good to be true. It saved lives. It boosted food production. It was cheap, long-lasting, and devastatingly effective against insects. Within just a few decades, it became one of the most widely used pesticides in human history. But what made DDT so effective also made it incredibly dangerous. Because DDT did not disappear after doing its job. Instead, it lingered, a chemical that would not go away. DDT persisted in the environment long after spraying stopped. It remained in soil, in river sediments, in lakes and reservoirs, in fish, and ultimately in birds. As DDT slowly broke down, it transformed into an even more persistent compound, dichlorodiphenylidida. DDT and DA belong to a class of substances Scientists call persistent organic pollutants. They do not dissolve easily in water. Instead, they bind tightly to sediments and fatty tissues in living organisms. Once inside the body, they accumulate and they move up the food chain, growing more concentrated at each level, from insects to fish to birds. And finally, two top predators like the bald eagle. In soil, DDT can have a half-life of anywhere from 2 to 15 years. In aquatic sediments, that persistence can stretch far longer, in some cases, more than a century. A half-life is the time it takes for half of a substance to break down, and with DDT and that process is painfully slow. Why North America held on to the poison. In North America, geography and climate made the problem even worse. Cold temperatures slowed chemical breakdown and reduced microbial activity that might otherwise help degrade pollutants. Lakes and reservoirs trapped contaminated sediments. Vast river systems like the Mississippi, Columbia, and Ohio collected runoff from thousands of miles of farmland. Even after spraying stopped, these chemicals remained buried in riverbeds and lake bottoms, slowly re-entering the food web, and waiting at the very top of that food web was the bald eagle. A predator that feeds heavily on fish and waterfowl, the eagle continued to be exposed long after the last application of the chemical. The mechanism of destruction, the devastation, did not come from sudden death. It came from reproductive failure. It interferes with calcium metabolism in birds. It disrupts the enzymes responsible for forming strong eggshells. Without enough calcium, shells become dangerously thin, unable to protect the developing chick inside. This single biological disruption had enormous consequences. Bald eagles can live for decades, but without successful reproduction, populations collapse. By the early 1960s, fewer than 500 nesting pairs remained in the lower 48 states. America's national bird stood on the brink of extinction. The turning point, scientists began to raise the alarm. Careful field studies linked chemical residues found in eagle eggs directly to eggshell thinning and reproductive failure. As evidence mounted, public awareness grew. A broader environmental movement began to take shape. In 1972, the United States banned nearly all uses of DDT. The ban did not bring instant relief. The chemicals were already embedded in the land, but it stopped the flow. Slowly, year by year, residue levels declined. Eggshells grew thicker. Chicks began to hatch. Hope returned. Recovery and vigilance. The recovery of the bald eagle is one of the greatest conservation success stories in history. From just a few hundred nesting pairs, the population rebounded to tens of thousands across the United States. Rivers once empty of eagles now host multiple generations. The bird that nearly vanished reclaimed its place in the sky. In 2007, the bald eagle was officially removed from the U.S. Endangered Species list, but the story does not end in celebration alone. Traces of DDT and D can still be found in sediments and wildlife today. Scientists continue to monitor rivers, lakes, and eagle populations, watching for lingering effects and guarding against new chemical threats. The lesson: the fall and rise of the bald eagle teaches us something profound. Human ingenuity can save lives, and it can endanger entire ecosystems. Chemicals designed for short-term benefit can cast long shadows. And nature, when given the chance, can recover. Today, when a bald eagle takes flight above an American river, it carries more than prey in its talons. It carries a reminder that science matters, that responsibility matters, and that even a national symbol is not immune to the consequences of our actions, because some dared to ask questions and took action. The sky is no longer silent, and future generations will not just learn about the bald eagle, they will see it soaring above them. If you like this content, please subscribe to our channel to ensure you don't miss out on our latest videos and updates.